I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody and just remind you to turn your cell phones off, please. And if we will, we'll pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, I'd like to have Mr. Steve Harris step forward. He will be giving us our invocation.
Let us pray together. Father, we're so aware tonight of the blessings that you bestow upon us, especially for this wonderful place to live and all of the community that we dwell in here. And certainly we recognize the responsibility that we have for this great blessing. And we pray your leadership and direction in the meeting tonight. We pray, Lord, that each one will have their say that needs to, and that the decision to be made will be of the profit and benefit of all, and that there'll be a spirit of unity and oneness. We know, Lord, that you bless that cooperation and love and compassion. We know that you are love because you sent your Son. And we're so glad for that love and salvation that you sent in him. So we pray your blessing upon the meeting tonight and encouragement in each one of our hearts as we seek to serve you. We ask it in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Alrighty, announcements. Basically, we've got one thing I'd like to mention is the Senator Burr and Tillis and Patrick McHenry, our district congressman, has sent a letter back October 3rd to Brock Long, who's the administrator of FEMA. And they basically are appealing the decision along with Governor Roy Cooper, and they're grateful for the outstanding rapid response, but they feel like that the appeal of the decision from FEMA not helping our folks out in Polk County and folks here in the western part of the state in Black Mountain should be looked at again, and they're asking for every possible consideration, and just wanted to let you guys know that. All righty, we have a proclamation of award recognition. Life-saving award, Police Chief Sean Freeman. And if we'll have him step forward, and Officers Ian Ammons and John McDonald.
It's always a privilege to get to recognize some of your staff for going above and beyond and doing something as great as saving a life. And what I want to do really quick is just give a synopsis, two individual synopses of what these guys did. So Officer Ian Ammons, on August the 8th, 2018 at approximately 8:10 p.m., Officer Ammons was dispatched to the BP gas station in Black Mountain to assist EMS. On arrival, Officer Ammons located a vehicle with a person standing outside of it. Officer Ammons found a male subject in the vehicle that was unconscious. Upon further review, he found that the subject had overdosed. Officer Ammons attempted to wake the subject. However, when this did not work, he conducted an assessment and found the subject was not breathing, had a very weak pulse. He then administered a dose of Narcan to the subject to the right thigh, and after a very short time, the subject became responsive, and the Black Mountain Fire Department arrived on scene and continued with treatment and transportation of the individual. Officer McDonald, on August 25th, 2018, at approximately 7:35 p.m., Officer McDonald was dispatched to the Shell Station in Black Mountain in reference to a subject who had locked herself in the restroom and was not responding. As Officer McDonald pointed to the parking lot, he saw multiple people outside waving their arms and telling him to hurry and get inside. Once Officer McDonald ran inside, he found the subject lying on the floor and they were unresponsive. He then checked for a pulse and had a difficult time locating one as the pulse was very weak. He also found the subject was suffering from a drug overdose. Further observation revealed the subject had a purple tint to their face as they were not breathing. Officer McDonald administered a dose of Narcan. A short time later, the subject sat up and began speaking. and even walk to the ambulance on their own. The quick actions of Officer Ammons and McDonald saved the life of a citizen. Their quick actions and dedication to the citizens of Black Mountain not only reflect well upon them, but they also reflect well upon our town and this department. Job well done, gentlemen. As part of the presentation, we want to present Officer McDonald and Officer Ammons with a life-saving medal. And likewise, we have a framed certificate as well for each officer.
All right, citizen comments, Mr. I was gonna leave that at the end. Under announcements, not announcements, under the, I got it. Not now. All right, citizen comments. Mr. Mark Beeson, please.
Good evening, afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Alderman. Thank you for hearing my comments. I've never addressed a board before, and a little bit nervous, quite honestly. So I live at 201 Chapel Road. I've been here for 15 years. My kids attended Owen, and been in that house for 15 years. I'm sitting in my office last Friday morning, and here comes two guys with shovels in my front yard, unbeknownst to me. So I walk out, hey, who are you guys? Oh, we're here with the town of Black Mountain. Well, their truck wasn't marked, had no indication they were with the town of Black Mountain. So I questioned them. They said, oh, we're here to put a concrete pad in your front yard. Okay, well, that's news to me. I mean, I live in a corner lot, corner of Valley Vista and Chapel Road, very nice residential, high-end residential community. They want to put a 6-foot by 8-foot concrete slab in my front yard, unbeknownst to me. I'm trying to sell my house. I have a contract on my house right now for $575,000. They want to put a concrete slab in my front yard. I'm a little freaked out. So I call the town. The gentleman, they leave. The town, I can't remember the lady's name at the water department. She said that Jamie would call me on Monday and sort these things out. So Monday again, same story, different verse. I'm in my office in my PJs, because I work from home, and here comes the same two guys, shovels in hand. I walk out there, this time my wife's in tow. What are you guys doing? We're here to put the concrete slab in. I know nothing about this. Jamie never contacted me. What are you guys doing? Next thing I know, the contractors call the police department. Chief of police shows up. 5 cop cars are in my front yard. I'm being threatened to go to jail. Again, unbeknownst to me, no one ever contacted me. Turns out, can I approach the bench, Your Honor? This is the industrial grade 4-foot by 8-foot commercial generator that they want to put in my front yard. This thing's $40,000. God knows what kind of sound it makes. It's got an automobile engine in it. It runs on propane or gas. I have no idea where the propane or gas is coming from. There's no gas in Chapel Road. So is there going to be a tank next to this 4-foot by 8-foot monstrosity in my front yard? Now, if you know Chapel Road, there is a small service hut that covers up the pumps, put the pump water up the hill. I totally get that. When I bought the house, that station was there. Somebody, Alderman perhaps, way back when decided, hey, let's cover up this ugly pump station in this residential neighborhood with a more descriptive, low-key hut. I sent a letter Jamie was good enough to say, hey, we'll give you, till the 22nd, we'll give you a 3-week bereavement. Gives me time to approach you. I sent a letter today. I basically said, I have 5 questions. Why all of a sudden is it necessary to have a backup generator on my property? How many times over the past 20 years has the power been out for an extended period of time that will require a generator? This is a $40,000 purchase by the town. Secondly, is it absolutely necessary to have this installed? Can it be moved to a side street? Can it be moved down by the golf course? Can it be hidden from plain sight so it's out of the eyesore that I view it as? Third, what's the source of the gas or propane? Is it going to be a fuel tank on top?
3 minutes. Thank you.
I'm done.
Yes, sir.
Any
And
questions?
Ron, if we can have you and Jamie discuss this and get back to him with anything that the town can or can't do.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
So will someone be contacting you to follow up then, or what's the next?
That's just what we asked the town manager to do.
Okay. Awesome.
All righty. We've got our communication from boards, commissions, and agencies. First up, Jamie Matthews.
Evening, Mayor and Board. This is Public Works Annual Report for Streets and Parks for 2017. Changed the report up some, trying to get you some better information. But I will say our reports go from January to January, calendar year, to where some of these numbers may be off by a little bit because we go July to July for budget year, so it overlaps. So I just want to throw that out there. But the numbers are accurate, but I just want you to keep that in mind when we get further into the report. On street capital projects for this year, the board agreed to budget the money for Montreat Road Phase 5 to finish up the sidewalk on Montreat Road, which is a very good project and had nothing but positive comments out of it from everybody. There was $141,000 spent on that Phase 5, and that took it from Carolina Heights to, I say Montreat, but it actually stopped a little bit past Flat Creek Road because Montreat was in agreement to finish that last phase. So as far as Black Mountain's concerned, Phase 5 was it for us. That project's complete. That was a good project. I was glad to be a part of it from the time it started at Phase 1, and nothing but positive results and feedback. Sidewalk replacement and repair, there was $20,000 budgeted. Part of it went for some repair on Cragmont Road. The other part went for the tree planters that you see at State Street, along with some porous pave. If you're wondering why that porous pave has not been put in, is because the installation instructions on that stuff, and we've put it in before, it has to be totally dry, and I mean dry for days. It will absorb water from the ground, and then it just makes a mess and ruins the whole product. So without saying more, I don't think we've had enough dry days this year but we still got the material, still waiting to put it in. So maybe this fall it'll stay dry enough that we can get that done and get that completed. Paving, we budgeted $100,000, spent $100,000, done 8 streets. That's not 8 total streets. Some of those was maybe an intersection. Some of it was some hand curbing that needed to be put back then. Striping, we done $9,040 worth of striping. That covered 8 streets. We didn't get to finish. The contractor that we've used for years had bought a new machine, had some new employees, and we all know it didn't turn out the best in the world. So try to get back on track this year. Reach out to some more contractors that does that. I've reached out to some people in Hendersonville that's supposed to come and look at some streets for us this year. We also budgeted under streets for a leaf vacuum, and we spent $5,500 on that, and that was a real time saver. Considering we'd do places like City Hall, the guys would have to blow them up, get them in the front of a backhoe, dump them into a truck, or bag them. with the amount of leaves we do, that's not very efficient. So now this mulches them up, and it's sort of twofold, because now we can take the ground leaves to community garden, and Diana can use them for compost. So it works out. New benches downtown, the only involvement we had, that was a grant that Angela Reese had obtained, and I don't really know the total dollar amount, but I know we got 31 benches for $30,645. We installed all those downtown. There was enough money in that grant to purchase a trailer, and what we done with that trailer to try to be more efficient for the department, because there's 42 or 43 planters downtown that we have to water, and I've got a couple guys that come in early in the mornings to do this. That way they can start their day with the rest of the crews, and so we put a water tank on that, put a hose reel on it, and we made it a total watering system, which cuts their time in half. So we had grant money left over for that, and so that's what we use for that. As far as street maintenance goes, it's pretty much what I call a cookie cutter: stormwater ditching, culvert replacement and repair. Our stormwater ditching is 8% of our total work orders. I'll get more into that in a minute. Tree trimming, pavement patching. The mowing, tree removal, and street trimming is 11% of our total work order system. Pavement patching, we put out 45 tons. And when I say put out, we're not a paving company. We put that out by hand, 45 tons. It's about $4,095, $4,100 is what it costs the taxpayer in material. Hemlock inoculation, we do that every year, as you know. We got like 1,000 trees. We do it every 3 years on a cycle. We done 328 trees in 2017. And for the public that don't know what that is, that's a chemical that we inject in the ground, and each injection is different for each tree depending on the trunk size, and it fights woolly adelgia in the hemlocks, which are going by the wayside very quick because of such an invasive little critter. But we're combating it, and we've had real good luck at it. Our snow removal, like I say, Asheville went from salt and sand to pure salt, which was a money saver to them, because it takes less material to put out to get the same job done. So what we do, we purchase the pure salt, and we do our own mixture with sand. And the reason I prefer sand is because we have some really high spots, such as Timber Park and places of that nature. Really helps with traction as far as the safety for us of getting up there to be able to treat. But we spent $1,350 of taxpayers' money on pure salt this year through a contract with Asheville. But I want to give Asheville kudos. They had a lot of leftover material they have to get rid of before they can get their new supply in. And for the past 2 years, they said, hey, if you'll send a truck out here, we'll give it to you. So they gave us several loads for free just to go get. So because they have to get rid of it to get their new shipment in. And so I want to thank them for that. And as far as parks projects and maintenance, I just briefed and highlighted some stuff. The repair and landscape for Veterans Memorial, we redone all that at Lakeview in May. We built and installed 3 compost bins at the community garden, put in a new yard hydrant over there for the gardens. There was a company actually installed the swing set at Carver, but we built the timbers, framed it in, remulched it, inspected it, because it has to be inspected because children's playgrounds by the state are held to a different standard as far as even the mulch and the depth of it. We removed a bunch of down trees and fallen timber behind Carver for a new greenway that was going to be put in back there, or basically a walking trail. We called it a greenway. And we restriped parking lots this year at the golf course, Carver, and Lake Tomahawk. When you get into these graphs, broke this down. There was 1,939 total work orders that was done in streets and parks this year. That does not include the other half of the department, which is water. And we broke it down. I broke it down into numbers and percentages because I wanted the board and the public to see where a lot of our time spent. And if you look at this graph, 61% of our work orders is spent on town property. And I'll show you something with that here in just a second. But If you look to the left on the graph though there, it'll show you the amount of work orders done, and you see that 1,183 of that 1939 was done on town properties. And then 150, of course, in ditches and culverts, and that's different things. It might be a culvert replacement, it might be a repair, it might be ditching. It's just a lot of little stuff, and I could make this report 2 days, but I will not do that. And so I just tried to hit the big stuff. If you go to the next slide, you break that down even further, and when I say town properties, if you look to the left side over there, you see town buildings. That town buildings is added into that town properties because that town properties, that 1,183 work orders was in parks. Most of the work was done in parks. You'll see over to the right side that 34% of that was downtown restrooms. That's Cherry Street, that's town square. Have somebody come in early in the morning, that has to, be kept up, clean, stocked twice a day, every day, 7 days a week. So that's where a lot of that comes from. Plus, we've had stuff like air conditioner issues and painting and stuff going, and problems there maintenance-wise, electrical, irrigation system. We got an irrigation system now that we man over there. We put a new float and refill system in the fountain downtown where we was having to fill it manually. Now it'll fill on its own, so that saves us some time. But if you look, you got 88 work orders at Lake Tomahawk, and it's broke down. You see something like Craigmont Park, which is 0, but that would be under mowing because that's really all we've had to do over there because it's not used much. There's not a real maintenance issue there other than mowing. Or the skate park, which is just a little park with pavement and a couple benches. So there ain't really nothing to do there. So that being said, the 61% of town properties it all falls under public buildings, which would be town square, art center, library, Lakeview, Lake Tomahawk. It all falls under that, and that's 61% of that total work order. I tried to touch some stuff that's highlighted for 2018 just because we've done some stuff this year, but it'll be on the next report. We've had to repair ball fields from flooding from Tropical Storm Alberto in May and June. We've done that 2 or 3 times in the past 4 years, and it's cost several $1,000s. But I would like to say, I've had a lot of people say, if you look at the back of them ball fields back there behind the maintenance shed, you'll see a real high berm, and that berm comes all the way around and then tapers off at the back of one of the fields back there. And I was approached with the question was, why don't it go all the way down the river? Well, the answer to that question is ball fields across the country is designed that way, and a lot of them's in a floodplain for the purpose of less destruction. So if I can explain that, if that berm went all the way down, water collects, which in turn builds velocity and force, and then we know what happens downstream. It tears stuff up. Well, if there was a berm down through there, what would happen is everything downstream plumb to Swannanoa, including the bridge on Blue Ridge Road, would probably not be there. So the water comes in at the end of that berm, and it's designed to back up slowly into them ball fields and then slowly recede out when the storm's over. So there's really, if we spend, a couple $1,000s rebuilding ball fields, then, risking life or injury downstream, they're designed that way for a reason, and I just thought I would throw that out there because a lot of people don't know that. MSD sewer line refurbishment, Broadway, Cherry Street, Midland Avenue, that was in 2018. I won't get too deep into that, but if you're wondering why Cherry Street's not restriped, we're still waiting on that downtown, parking study to come back. But them projects are done, and the reason I put it on here is because during that time, we replaced some utilities that needed to be replaced, so it was a good time to jump on board. And then the big one was moving into the new Public Works building. And I have to say, and I'm speaking for me and the departments involved, that's the best thing that's ever happened to us. Everybody's happy about that. That has been a wonderful move. I'd like to thank everybody involved, from the board, the mayor, to Ron, to Angela. Everybody's been involved with it, and I know I'm missing somebody, but there's a lot of work put into that by everybody, and we done 90% of it in-house, and that's something that the taxpayers can be very proud of. And so I'll report more on that in 18, but then we had the preparations for Hurricane Florence in September, and I can say this, every department was spot on and prepared for that storm. Fire, police, parks, us, everybody involved, and I just want to say thank you to everybody for that. That's one of the best ones I ever sat through, and I've been here for over a decade. So I know we got another one coming, but it ain't gonna happen. So I'm predicting that, and but I'm not always right. So, but we're prepared for it too, just so you know. But that's basically our report for 2017. If you got any questions.
Thanks, Jamie.
Hey, Jamie, just briefly, it's not on your report, but just because Mr. Beeson's waited patiently, and I know you won't have the answers specifically to the 5 questions you had, but can you just give me the broad strokes of what this is for? And
Broad strokes is, okay, back during the budget year, the board approved for us to purchase 3 generators for the water system to upgrade that water system. One of them was to go in where Mr. Beeson's talking about on Chapel Road, which is in a public right-of-way, which is right outside our pump station now, for the purpose if we lose power, which we do take a threat during the hurricanes and stuff, then we have no way to recharge that system because the pumps won't run. So with that being installed, then we don't risk that. It will be run by the SCADA system, which it can be exercised at any time we choose. So, you know, it should not fire up in the middle of the night or anything like that, or anything of that nature. So that's just a broad spectrum of what that's about.
It's on public right of way.
It is on public right of way, yes, sir. I checked with our town attorney on that.
Is there any reason it can't be put in the current shed there?
Well, there's not enough room in it. It's actually a pit with a roof on it,
Right.
And our pumps are down inside that.
Right.
Mr. Beeson had wanted to put it, or had mentioned putting it on the other side of the building. The reason we can't put it on the other side is because of fire hydrants and valves for that. So that's really the only place that it can go is outside that pump station as far as for a backup for our system.
well, thank you for giving me the overview of it. Yeah, and I'll leave it to you and Ron. But I mean, if we can look at something at screening or another location,
Okay.
I'd be interested in hearing those alternatives.
Okay.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
All righty. Bound and sold, Bruce Granger.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come back. This is my 3rd annual presentation to the Board of Aldermen to talk to you a little bit about Bounty and Soul. This year I want to take a little bit different tack as opposed to the details. I want to just give you the summary. Bounty and Soul on August 28th this year turned 4 years old. So Bounty and Soul started 4 years ago at St. James Episcopal Church with a 6-foot table of vegetables that Alec Asperian, the founder, was trying to convince people that there was a better alternative to macaroni and cheese. And now it has evolved into what I'll discuss with you this evening. We've just concluded a significant strategic planning initiative through the Board of Directors to come up with what's next and what's ahead. We'll be reporting more on that to the entire community as over the next couple of months. The mission is Bounty and Soul co-creates healthy communities through a whole person model. That's the work that we do. Our vision, no one hungry, everyone healthy. I won't take you through the core values. They'll be as a part of the minutes of the meeting. And I apologize, I'm going to speed through this because Angela asked me to. So I do what Angela asks me to. Kidding. So we are at where fresh food, health, well-being, and community intersect. And I'll talk to you for just a few minutes about how that works. So since the beginning in August of 2014, we've distributed over 1.5 million pounds of fresh produce and whole grains. So 1.5 million pounds. Think about that. We're now on a track that each week we distribute almost 4 tons of fresh produce and whole grains. That continues to increase week after week, month after month, time after time. People come to our Produce to the People markets now from as far away as Old Fort and Marion, from Weaverville, from Hendersonville, from Leicester, to get access to the fresh foods, the nutrition education, and the wellness lessons that go along with each one of our 5 weekly markets. Since the beginning in August 2014, we've touched over 150,000 people. And those are people at these 1,200 plus and growing numbers of workshops that we've conducted, which is a wellness lesson. So what do you do with an eggplant? If you don't know and that's not a familiar food to you, we conduct training and education that teaches people about the health value of eggplant or about others, and provide them with resources that they can go home and they can practice what they're learning and the class with the food, with the resources that they get. It gives them the opportunity and the tools that they need in order to begin to live a healthier life and make better decisions for themselves. So since the beginning in August 2014, over 35,000 volunteer hours have been donated. If you look at the community impact of Bounty and Soul for a $325,000 annual budget, we'll have a $1.2 million community impact this year. And that's no small matter to the donation of volunteer hours, the people who really make it go. So in the last 12 months, the Bounty and Soul staff has ballooned from 3 full-time and 1 part-time employee to 4 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. So with the 150 volunteers that we draw down on, members of the community who come and really do a lot of the work for us and with us, that's how we're able to really have a significant impact. So since the beginning, volunteers have played a significant role. Some of the impact from our volunteers, from our participants, the feedback that we get from participants, this is all data that was gathered on our behalf by the UNC Asheville Health and Wellness Department in an annual, now the 3rd annual survey that they've conducted. I won't take you down through all this, but when you've got 96% increase their fruits and vegetable consumption, 95% increase their knowledge of healthy eating, and that really becomes the bottom line. It's helping people understand how to do this on their own. The impact that we've had from the participants who now go back to their physicians, and all of a sudden someone who's been diabetic for 7 years now goes back to their physician, all of a sudden they're not diabetic anymore. The doctor goes, what in the world? What changed? Well, I started going to Bounty and Soul, and I'm paying attention to what they're doing, I'm eating differently, and all of a sudden I'm not diabetic. So the next thing that happens is we get a phone call from the physician says, okay, can I send people to you? Absolutely. So we now have physicians who are writing prescriptions to their patients to come to our programming. And that's beginning to have an impact as well. And I'll talk to you about that in a minute. So our healthcare provider program in the partnership with MAHEC and Mission Physician Offices is our way now of making our health coaching program where there's more one-on-one, more personal coaching of individuals and of groups to take them through a process for 12 weeks of intensive meeting with a health coach, teaching them about lifestyle changes, responding specifically to each of the individual's needs really becomes the output of that. The data from the health coaching program, again, we've got in place our ability to navigate through HIPAA regulations. Again, almost virtually 100% of the people who've gone through the health coaching program now report back and validated and verified by their physicians in pre and post panels the impact that it's having in the community. So what we're doing in these 150,000 people that we've touched over the course of time is we're moving the needle in health and wellness, not only on an individual basis, but as that ripples out across the community, because these people talk and share the success that they've had. And I want to just talk to you for a minute about Mac. Mac is probably one of our poster children. He had been going to his MAHEC physician for almost 10 years. He weighed 385 pounds. At the time, he was off the charts in all of the basic health line indicators. He had been to others trying to get some help. His physician had been working with him, like I said, for almost 10 years. Somebody said, you really ought to go to Bounty and Soul. What in the world is that? Long story short, he came. He started working with one of our health coaches. Mac is now, he has lost almost 100 pounds. He's coming off of disability. He was a 5th grade school teacher. He's going back to work. His health markers are all in the normal range, and he is now he's not only healthy in his own right, but he's now helping us with our children's activities and programming. So we have Mac, and we have 150,000 others just like him over the course of 4 years that have seen significant increase and improvement in their own health, and then as that ripples out across the community. So I just want you to understand the role that we play in the community. Larry and Carlos have been to markets before. I invite you all to come. Take a look, lift the lid on this thing, take a look at it and see the work that goes on in this community, by this community, for this community. Because if there was ever a situation of a community taking care of a community, that's what really happens within the Bounty and Soul program. And as I mentioned, we'll have more to report back to the community on our strategic plan and where we are going forward. But I think it's all really good news. Like I said, it's a significant return on not a very big investment for the community, and we appreciate all the help and support for you folks that we get from you folks and from you folks.
Bruce, I have a question. Someone approached me, I believe it's last week, and I knew you were going to be doing this report, so I thought I'll save my question. You moved from the elementary school to
Black Mountain Presbyterian Society.
Right, and this person was a little bit upset because, you know, most of us don't like change.
Right.
Can you explain why?
Sure. Several reasons for it. The bottom line of it is we've outgrown the space. We've been at Black Mountain Elementary School almost since the beginning. It was the third market of the 5 in the progression. We started there when Norm Bossert was the principal a number of years ago. But that market has grown from, at the time, maybe 25, 30 households to now where we have 55, 60 households. We've just simply outgrown the space. As the temperatures drop and we start to move inside, the cafeteria, the space that we would have inside, is just way too small to get that many people with all the education, the lessons, plus all the food that we bring, about 2,000 pounds of food to that market every week. So we needed some bigger space, and Black Mountain Presbyterian presented that opportunity to us. So last Friday was our last market at the elementary school. We've spent the last 5 weeks in active communication at all of our markets as best we possibly can to communicate people where we're moving and how we're moving and what the opportunities and advantages will be there. But it was just purely, the bottom line is, we outgrew the space.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Thank you, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. All righty. Chamber of Commerce events, Bob Murray.
I've got a handout. Just want to give you a kind of brief annual report too, before I introduce Mary, who's going to talk about our big event coming up at the Chamber. Our Chamber this year is celebrating our 95th year, and our mission statement is that we provide, promotes, and prospers locally. We are the little town that rocks, and the membership in the Chamber identifies you as a supporter of your community and a voice for business. This year we added 33 new members, and we have a total of 324 Chamber members at this time. Our website, we saw 117,830 special visitors, and we have average about 9,000 a month. 3,000 Facebook likes, and we produce an e-newsletter every week. 1,430 people are receiving that newsletter, which includes a community calendar. At the Visitor Center, we received at that time, we took the end of last year, 28,400 at the Visitor Center. We have about 440 volunteers that operate our Visitor Center. We produce 15,000 visitor guides that we have distributed throughout the area through other visitor centers, through the I-26 visitor centers, through the Asheville Visitor Center, and we print 15,000 of those, and we've mailed 3,784 of those first-class mail. We print 50,000 shopping maps, we call it. It looks like this. Has a map and business locations in that map. We print 50,000 of those, and they're distributed through the mountain information racks. There's 300 of those, and we also distribute those at area visitor centers and along interstate I-26 and I-40 welcome centers. We present the Lib Harper Scholarship Fund every year, $1,000 to an Owen senior going to college in Buncombe County. We have 2 major networking events. Our Biscuit and Business event is the first Wednesday of the month at the Red Rocker Inn in the season, and Business After Hours, the third Thursday of the month at business locations. Our signature events are the Sourwood Festival. We just finished Cycle NC with 1,000 cyclists in Black Mountain. We have the Christmas parade coming up on December the 8th. Our Grand Marshal will be Ed Buchanan. Our Holly Jolly is Friday, December the 7th. We help put on the Black Mountain Marathon and Mount Mitchell Challenge the last weekend in February. We have an annual Christmas banquet. Other groups that we have involvement in are the Buncombe County Tourism Development Authority, Blue Ridge Mountain Hosts, National Heritage Area, Western North Carolina Chamber Executives, Western North Carolina Passenger Rail Committee. This time I'd like to welcome Mary Standard. She's one of our volunteers and historian for the town. Talk about a new exciting event we have coming up at their visitor center.
Thank you, Bob, and it's a pleasure to be with you tonight. And my name is Mary Standard, and I've been fortunate enough for the last 13 years to be a member of the larger community, a member of the Montreat, Black Mountain, Swannanoa community. And what an amazing place we live in. Aren't we lucky? And I'm lucky to be part of it. For the last couple of years, I've become a volunteer at the Black Mountain Swannanoa Chamber of Commerce, and I want to thank you as a council for your support of that, and also for the community for your support of the Chamber of Commerce. It's just a great place to work and to be, and just it's a joyous place to work. And you'd be surprised sometimes, as I was, that I was working one shift down there for about 2 or 3 hours, and we had 100 people come in. 100 people coming in. And these are visitors who are coming. But the event that I came to talk about tonight is a celebration. It's actually a double celebration. And I want to invite the council, and I want to invite the community, because this really is an opportunity for the residents and the council to come in, for all of us in the community, to celebrate the rich heritage each of us becomes part of when we come to this community, whether we're residents or whether we're visitors. So what I'd like to share with you, this double celebration that we're having, is we're going to have birthday parties. We're going to celebrate the 125th anniversary of the founding of the town of Black Mountain. It was incorporated in 1893. The center of town was the railroad depot. You can go down there today and still see where the original markers were found. And it was at that time that the town of Black Mountain began its long tradition of becoming the place in the Swannanoa Valley, the eastern part of the Swannanoa Valley, providing trades and goods and services for those who live here and those who come here. A tradition which I think Black Mountain still embodies today and which the Chamber promotes. And one of the earliest entrepreneurs that we have within the town of Black Mountain was Claudia Crawford McGraw, known to those of us who have lived here a few years, and for those of you who grow up here, as the famous Apron Lady. She and her husband, John Gary, were among the original entrepreneurs of the town of Black Mountain, and they built a little building, a small brick building, just a stone's throw from here. It now has a bright red roof. And that building is now celebrating its 100th birthday. So it's a double celebration. And the history of that little building sort of shows the art and the history of the town of Black Mountain. So come, and I'd like to share with you the invitation. It's to be held on Sunday, October 28th, 2018. That's Sunday afternoon, so you'll be in your church clothes already, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. You, the council, and you, the community, are invited to an open house for the 100-year-old Claudia McGraw Coffee House, currently home to the Chamber Visitor Center. Enjoy the history as told by local residents. Claudia McGraw's granddaughter is going to be there. Craig Cooley, whose father had a doctor's office there for many years, is going to be there. We're going to have, they'll be telling the history. There'll be pound cake using Claudia McGraw's original recipe. And refreshments are going to be provided by Black Mountain Bistro as well, who's opening up her porch and her patio for that Sunday afternoon. And that was the home of Claudia Crawford McGraw. Many of Claudia's original aprons will be on display. There'll be a raffle for a Joyce Paris history book and photography by Wendell Bagley, and those proceeds will go to the hurricane relief. Most importantly, you'll get an opportunity to buy a bit of Black Mountain history with an opportunity to bid on a silent auction of the 25 rocking chairs for the little town that rocks. And these proceeds are to be split between the Chamber and the Swannanoa Valley League Fine Arts. Also, come and celebrate Black Mountain's 125th year anniversary and the 100th anniversary of Claudia McGraw Tea House. Come become part of the heritage that we all enjoy and live in here. So thank you very much for that. And I have two things, if I may. I will, since Alderman Showers is closest to me here, and if I can approach him, these are invitations specific for each of the aldermen, and we appreciate him being the representative to the Chamber of Commerce. And I have one guest that I'd like to introduce you to now. Now, some of you may know her as Pearl Hall, but she was in Mr. Griffin's elementary class last year and partook in the history project that they have. So she decided to portray Claudia Crawford McGraw. So she's here with us tonight. So if you, Claudia, if you'd come forward.
Hi, I'm Claudia McGraw, and I would like to share this pound cake with everyone.
We supposed to eat that now?
We have naps. It's free slice, so whenever you decide, one of your decisions is made.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, serving as representative with this board to the chamber, I'd like to really thank and commend Bob and Glenda for the job that they do at the chamber. Each year we make a monetary contribution to the chamber, and each year I always ask for more. And for the next 2 years while I'm on this board, I'm going to always be asking for more because of the wonderful job that they do over there. I think it's representative in what Bob has shared with us. So they bring a lot of revenue into this town, a lot of tourists come into this town, and like I said, they are to be commended for the job that they do. And it is a true pleasure to serve on that board with them, and I always look forward to the business after hours. Thank you.
Anyone else? All righty. We're moving on to the consent agenda. And Ron, if you will give us an update on these, please.
First item A relates to the adoption of minutes from our closed session on September 5, September 10th, the September 6th agenda session, and the last regular session on September 10th. The second one is a call for a public hearing. There are 3 calls for public hearing, all calling for a public hearing on Monday, November the 19th at 6 p.m. And those involve first a call for a public hearing to close an unopened platted portion of First Street, a call for a public hearing for text amendments to floodways and non-encroachment areas. That revolves around the last time the ordinance was revised. Apparently some language was left out that deals with being able to supervise and police cleanup and such. And of course, one of the things that brought it to our attention, I think, is when we had all the floods and everything, we saw that it limited our ability to do some things. D, a call for public hearing for text amendments to home occupations. Again, there are a lot of home occupations we don't know exist until there's some complaint or something goes wrong. And so we're trying to address that. E, budget amendment for 4th of July fireworks. We had various contributions for that, and we need to appropriate $974 out of our fund balance to square the account for the fireworks that were published or purchased. F, the budget amendment for the police K-9 vehicle. The chief and I've talked about this a bunch. The police department seized a 2015 Ford F-150 Super Crew Cab King Ranch truck as part of a drug investigation, arrest, prosecution, and that's been forfeited to the town. And the plan is to make that into a vehicle that will, one, have language on it which will indicate thank you to your local drug dealer for donating this to the town. And additionally, it's going to be the vehicle that will be used for the canine dog that we're getting. There were some damages done to the vehicle as part of missing a wheel, where the guy apparently put the spare on and drove off at some point and left the wheel on the side of the road, so we had to replace that. Some damage to when the window was knocked out, some paint, various things like that. Additionally, there also is some work to be done for upfitting it for the canine concerning the heat and cooling, dealing with that, the fan system. But at any rate, there's also some ABC money that will be spent as part of this. But the bottom line is asking to increase the ABC distribution by $1,300 and the capital expense by $15,000 for a total of $1,613. And when we finish with it, it'll be worth $66,000. So it's a pretty inexpensive way for the town to get a very nice vehicle that will serve our needs for a long time, and plus advertise to the drug dealers of the town that we'll take your stuff if you don't stop. The next one is the budget amendment concerning the water services system contract. That was last month, if you recall. Charlie Gross had gone into private enterprise but agreed to continue to do the job that we need in terms of filing reports and checking our water system and treating it as necessary. And basically what this is doing is allocating or moving the salary from wages into the contract that we entered into it. So it's basically spending no new money. This is money that's already been allocated for the year as part of his original salary. So it's moving the money from one account to another one, basically. The budget amendment for the property tax owed to Buncombe County at 304 Black Mountain Avenue, which is the building where Public Works and Parks and Rec reside. When the property was purchased in February, the tax is due and owing on January the 1st. The piece of property on January 1st is owed that much money, which I learned something new is all this. I'm not a real estate lawyer, but I had assumed when the town bought it that you would probably get a forgiveness for the part of the year the town owned it, but it doesn't work like that. So after, I think it was the end of February maybe, that the property changed hands, basically somewhere along in there. The first 2 months were allocated between the parties, I would assume, in the closing statement, and you have as part of all of that, the bottom line is we owe $12,514, so we're asking to appropriate the money to pay our taxes, although the good news is we'll get back or get a credit for $4,800 and change, because that's part of what Black Mountain gets, is that Asheville collects our taxes for us, and that will be returned to us. The resolution to award retiring Chief Steve Jones his firefighting helmet and badge. He is, as the board knows, is retiring on the 28th of November of this year. And that would be the consent agenda, and if the board's will, is a consent motion to approve.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve consent items A through I?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass it 5-0. All right, citizen comments for unfinished or new business. Seeing none, we'll go on to unfinished business, agreement for wholesale water purchase from the city of Asheville. We're going to continue discussion as far as the water agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a suggestion to the board that we table that discussion, but that the town finance officer or Dean bring to us for our November meeting a recommendation on the water that we can purchase, and that'll also give him time to work with our new town manager on it and bring Josh Harrell in the loop on it completely. So, because I think we have discussed it, and I think, Tim, our newest board member, is Alderman, is up to date, and so I think we're kind of ready to move forward, at least on a detailed discussion, and with your recommendation and with Josh's, I think we're ready to amend it.
Okay, everybody okay with that? I'll continue on then. B, request to acquire Blue Ridge Assembly Drive water line, City of Asheville water line transfer agreement amendment.
Mayor and Alderman, that is, originally the town of Black Mountain had entered into an agreement with the City of Asheville to take over 600 customers that reside in the Black Mountain city limits in increments of 300. It was originally scheduled for this December and next December. However, the original idea was that we had to have our new pumping station, which should go in about a year before we could do that. However, and you'll recall at a prior meeting we talked about the water pressure problems on part of Blue Ridge Assembly area off Blue Ridge Road. With some fire hydrants had been tested up that road, and there were some issues. And so we looked into that, and Ron Sneed and Jamie have reached out to their counterparts, and in effect it appears that the City of Asheville is willing to, instead of making this a two-phase transfer, it will be a three-phase transfer. The first phase would be to transfer approximately half of the customers, 150 plus or minus, on the Blue Ridge Road, Blue Ridge Assembly area, those that are south of the interstate, to us in the near future. Two things are prerequisites to that, or three. One would be to draft a new agreement reflecting the time frame we're going to do this. The City of Asheville indicated that they would like us to, basically a three-phase matter, give them some dates. And I had suggested we consider maybe May for 19, 20, and 21 should give us a time for everything. The only caveat there would be if there's some issue when the pump goes in, but hopefully that'll be in early next year. The second thing that, and the City of Asheville indicated that if we would draft that, they would get their side of the fence to sign it, and then I think we'd be able to sign it. And Jamie's been in contact with the folks concerning the actual, and what it requires from our side as far as to supply the water, increase the pressure, is connect their 6-inch pipe that's currently serving that area to our 10-inch pipe, which is less than 100 yards away. And the City of Asheville has indicated that they will assist us in making that connection. The third thing that, as part of the timing, Asheville bills every other month. We bill monthly. Asheville wants to inform their customers that they're about to get a new water seller, so they can plan accordingly and get notified and so on and so forth. And then from our perspective, we've got to put them into our system so we can send out bills. And whether we have to do that manually or whether there's some kind of computer program that they can just load our stuff, I don't have the answer for that yet, but we're working on that. So that is the gist of all of that. So I would hope that the board would direct us to move forward with a three-part transfer and the dates indicated. And again, I see no reason why, if all goes smoothly, the third phase might even be moved up, since that would be 2.5 years from now.
Is there anything, Ron Sneed, is there anything, or Jamie, or Ron Moore, is there any problem with, or does it facilitate the situation that we have and all the moving parts if we direct Ron Sneed to amend, work with City of Asheville to amend the current agreement to make it 3 phases, first phase May of 2019, second phase May of 2020, third phase May of 2021. But if both parties are ready to move forward more expeditiously than that, we can.
The contract as written and as would be revised would say, basically no later than.
No later
each
than.
of those dates. So
Yeah.
anything like the first phase we're talking about now, that might possibly happen sooner.
Right.
And the third phase might possibly
Right.
happen sooner. The caveat is, I talked to Jess Gardner this morning, is the bids on construction come back in on November 1st.
Right.
Jess's only concern was he liked the May. That looked like a good time frame engineering wise. It'll be if those bids come in close to estimate, we're fine. His concern is if bids come in high, we may have to come back and talk about time to get that worked out. That affects mostly phase 2.
Right.
Phase 3, like I said, that'll follow pretty easily once phase 2 arrives and doesn't affect phase 1.
Right.
But I haven't put those dates in front of the city yet, but I'll do that. I have a draft already that I can hand out to you folks and have in a hand so you know what the city's looking at. I'm quite certain it'll get rewritten 3 times before you have something to vote on.
Right.
But we're ready to move forward.
Well, so I would make a motion that we direct the town attorney to work with City of Asheville to amend the current agreement accordingly and those tentatively, those 3 dates, May of 19, May of 20, and May of 21. And in addition, I'd like to add to my motion that the board authorizes the City of Asheville to, because in my thinking, they're going to be owning the line still when the likely tap would take place into the 10-inch line, authorize the City of Asheville to connect into our 10-inch line. And that way, the billing and so forth, I think that administrative business will catch up with it, but if we can, I'd like for that to be included in the motion so that Jamie and the City of Asheville can comfortably work on that transaction, you know, with the authority of the board behind them. So that's my motion.
All right, we have a motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, charter amendment for even year elections. This has been on unfinished business for a while. Larry, do you have any additional information as far as the possible savings from the election board?
I do not, over and above the discussions we've already had. I would like to ask the board to table the motion for another month. And the only thing I'm waiting for, and I know, Ron, you have something to say, is that Senator Van Dyne was going to reach out with some language and so forth through Land to Sky Regional Council for any of the municipalities that were interested. And so that would be my thought, Ron. I'd wait to hear from you before
nothing to do with that, but in terms of the cost savings, I spoke with Trina Parker last week, and she indicated that if you stay as it is in odd years, the cost saving, and the cost saving relates to what it's cost us in the past to have an election. And as I recall, there were 3 different amounts given to us. They were like $13,000, $15,000, $17,000. But she said if you stayed in the odd years, you could expect to save 30 to 50%. If you went to the even years, you could save as much as 75%.
Right. And I think there were some numbers tossed out by Trina, and that's all consistent with that, Ron. I think my understanding is, if these numbers ring a bell to you, that currently, and I think Dean had provided this number, currently we're paying something like 17.
That was the last election.
Right. Last election was 17, so you're looking at saving 30% of that number perhaps if you stayed with the odd years, and saving 75% of that number if you moved to even. So I think that's kind of consistent. Thank you, Ron, but that would be my request to the board, my recommendation that we table it and see what our neighbors are going to do and how things move forward and so forth.
Enforcing them in districts. It's wrong when they did it in Charlotte. It's wrong when they wrong for us to ask for it just because it's politically expedient or it's a cost savings. It's a cost savings either way. So I think we do need some more information, and if we can have that by next month, I'd appreciate it. Yeah.
It'd be my understanding of the referendum, there's no way we'd get it on this year's,
I'm not. I don't think it should be. I think it should be in 19. That would give one. If we could get a cost on that, we could have it, and that would give 1 year of public debate.
all right.
Could you all please use your microphones? It would help. They're on, but they're not in front of them. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to extend our even year elections conversation. Larry?
Just table it, yeah.
All right. New business, financial statements. And Travis Keever, you and Dean will present that to us, please.
I'll be fast. So, Gould, Mayor and Board, it's an honor to speak before you tonight. Gould Killian has been hard at it the last week or two, and they got us a draft copy of the financial statements. These look a little different than what you've seen in the past. Travis, I think, is still confident that the numbers are not going to change, but probably within a couple of weeks we'll get a nice, beautiful, bounded copy that will not say draft all over it. I'm just going to talk very briefly about some of the key numbers. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them. But I wanted to, first of all, let's see. Which one am I? Oops, sorry. There we go. So I did a little like a 7-year history of fund balance in the general fund. Now our fund balance went down $286,000, our total fund balance in the general fund in the fiscal year we just ended. And as some of you, most of you probably know, to balance the budget in the beginning of each year, we have a beginning appropriated fund balance. We're basically saying that's what we need to dip into our savings, how much we need to dip into our savings to have a balanced budget. And I kind of give you, a 7-8 year history. And in fiscal year 13, we actually did not have to dip into our savings at all. But during the year, we also come before you with budget amendments, which generally increases how much we're appropriating fund balance. Although in fiscal year 12, somehow or other, it went the other way. But most years you can see that during the year, things happen which we have to dip into our savings. We usually go up, I did an average, which I don't show on that sheet, but from fiscal year 12 to fiscal year 17, we generally come before you and we increase fund balance appropriated by close to $200,000 during the year. I also, on the bottom line, I kind of show you how total fund balance changes throughout the year. Now, fiscal year 18, our fund balance went down by quite a bit, but that's because we started with a very high appropriated fund balance, in part because we wanted to pay off the Lakeview pool debt. And then also with the purchase of the foam and fabric building, we also appropriated another $250,000 of fund balance. So we were all aware of that. The more we dip into our fund balance, the less likely that we will increase fund balance in a fiscal year. So this this is not a big surprise to me. Luckily, or the good news is, in the current year we're in, we only appropriated $73,000. Even after these budget amendments that we just passed, we're still only at $95,000, which are very low amounts. If we stay somewhere in that ballpark, it really increases our odds greatly of our total fund balance increasing. So that's my fund balance talk for the night. I also give you 7 years of property taxes. Those first 2 years, those are in thousands, so we started out, well, right now we're getting about $3.9 million in property taxes. Those first couple of years, there was a property reappraisal, and that's when the big Ingalls expansion took place down at the warehouse, so that really increased our tax base by quite a bit. But you can see from fiscal year 14, pretty much through fiscal year 17, we did not see a lot of growth. They're all right about at $3.8 million. I think we all see a lot of great things going on in town, building-wise, but we, besides this last fiscal year, we had a couple pretty flat years. Between property taxes and the next slide, sales tax, that makes up about 65% of our general fund revenues. And sales tax, again, the last couple years has been rather flat. Sales tax are based on pretty much all the sales that happen in Buncombe County. So we benefit from Asheville a lot in this situation. We get about 1.5% of whenever I buy a $100 item, there's $7 worth of sales tax on that. The town ends up with about 1.5% of that, which is about a dime. But I'm just pointing that out to sort of show that while those are increasing, they're not increasing by a huge percent in recent years. If you look at like fiscal year 16, 17, and 18. Lastly, I give you a slide on general fund salaries. I first started this slide with the total government salaries, but because we brought back the golf course and their employees, I think in fiscal year 14, it kind of skewed the slide a little bit. So I changed it for just general fund employees. I do not have fiscal year 18 in there at this point. I sort of finished the slide a little earlier today. For each 1% pay raise that you give, that the board approves, that works out to be about $40,000 for general fund employees. So if you give away 2% some year, that's going to be about $80,000. And we really have not added many positions. I think the board gave up their salaries 2 or 3 years ago, and that added a position, but it really didn't cost the town any money. And we added some positions this year in part because of Buncombe County. We were able to get a higher fire tax. We also, we have both the water fund and the golf fund, which are enterprise funds. I don't have any slides on this right now, but those funds are, supposed to pay for themselves. The golf fund has kind of struggled in that regard lately. The water fund usually does all right. We have 4 capital projects funds. Those are largely grant funded. The Riverwalk Greenway is by far the largest, and that one is over 80% grant funded. The other ones are they have to do with the watershed restoration and some stream bank improvement that we're working on. But that's really all I have for the statements right now. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
When you say for the statements, do you mean statements as of
the financial statements
as of June 30th of 2018?
Right. And that should be in the that was in the draft financial statements that I hope everybody got a copy of at the agenda meeting. And I think Travis will be talking about some of the numbers in there as well.
Yeah. I think my questions would be more for Travis. I think.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you. Travis?
I would add though, before I was thinking, you can. It's not a question for you, Dean. But on the property tax bar graph that you did, that the public should be aware and probably is aware, that we had a revaluation in there, but then we adjust the property taxes so that you don't see that much of an increase. We had a neutral increase, although our property values went up. So when you see all the building and so forth in town, our base did increase. And we adjusted the property taxes to keep our property tax neutral, even though our base increased, quite significantly. So that's the reason you see it nice and level.
Yeah, I meant to mention that actually. Both times we have had reappraisals, the board has gone, one time they went exactly revenue neutral, and the next time they went below the revenue neutral. Many governments go above revenue neutral, which brings in more revenue for the town, but it also costs property owners money.
Right.
So,
Okay, Mayor, Board, it's an honor to speak to you again tonight. As Dean mentioned, we've recently completed the fiscal year 2018 audit. As he mentioned, what you have there says draft on it. It's our intention that it doesn't change. We have to send those statements off to the local government commission to get their kind of final seal of approval. That's been done, but we've not heard back from them yet. So we leave it in a quote-unquote draft format until we hear back from them. But we don't anticipate any changes, and if there are any, they should just be cosmetic at this point. I'd like to thank Dean and all the staff of the Finance Department for their hard work completing the audit. As usual, all the town staff has been incredibly responsive and accommodating and has shown a tremendous level of professionalism in working their way through the audit. And we appreciate that very much. My presentation is going to be brief, and it'll mostly cover the 2 audit reports that we issue that are included within the draft that you have. I'll also cover the board communication letter that we issued, which I think, Angela, did they get a copy of that?
The audit wrap-up?
Yeah. So I'll cover that letter that we issued, and then also give just a few financial highlights. So there's 2 audit reports issued that are in the CAFR. The first opinion is on the financial statements. It's on page 1. We issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on the town's financial statements. That means we believe the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's a clean opinion. That's what everybody wants. It's a boilerplate letter that'll look very similar to any other government, to their audit opinion. The second opinion is a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. It's also called a Yellow Book opinion. This is unique to government. It's required under government auditing standards. It's found on page 91, almost all the way in the back. This is where we assess the town's internal controls. We reported no material weaknesses in internal control. We did have one reportable compliance finding that was discovered during a routine walkthrough of the payroll process. We noticed that a couple of personnel files that we reviewed did not contain a Form I-9, which is required by U.S. Census and Immigration to verify an employee's eligibility to work in the United States. Those employees were also omitted from the federal E-Verify database. I know the new Human Resources Coordinator has worked really hard to kind of get a grasp on the scope of that issue. We didn't look beyond the 2 files that we noticed. We made management aware of the issue, and they've gone from there. We did make a recommendation that to prevent something like that from happening in the future, they establish a checklist or something similar that goes in every personnel file that includes all the required documentation. Now keep in mind, we don't perform a full internal control audit. We only test the internal controls of the town to the extent that it's necessary to plan and perform our audit of the financial statements. We do this through walkthroughs of key processes, primarily in the finance department. We observe transactions in process, we test samples of past activity, and conduct interviews with staff members. We hope that you'll take time to review the CAFR. So clocks in at about 110 pages this year, I think, so it's good reading material. And don't hesitate to contact us if there's anything that you need clarification on or if something doesn't make sense. So the second document you have is, I believe it says audit wrap-up on it. That combines a management letter as well as required auditor communications. There's certain information that at the close of an audit that we're required to communicate to the board. I'll just hit some of the highlights. I'm not going to refer to any pages in there. We noted no transactions for which there's a lack of authoritative accounting guidance or that don't conform to accounting standards. Your financial statements always have estimates in them. Some of the more sensitive estimates that affect your financial statements include depreciation methods and useful lives of assets, allowances for any uncollectible receivables. and actuarial estimates that are used to estimate liabilities arising from the various post-employment benefit plans that the town participates in, such as the local government employees retirement system, the law enforcement officer special separation allowance, and retiree health benefits, which are administered through the state health plan. The town has sort of been assigned a portion of all those liabilities at the state level. You report that in your financial statements.
What is that number, Travis?
For which one? All of
The
them?
liability,
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. It's in the footnotes. This year was the first year that the retiree health care benefit shows up. I want to think it's in the neighborhood of 7 to 7.5 million.
yeah, it's 6.6.
Yeah.
So it's a, I don't know if you noticed that or not, but it's a new liability on our balance sheet. It represents our share of the, it's basically an unfunded liability
Correct.
at the state level, and our share is 6.6 million. So it's somewhat of an eye-opener, you know, for the public.
It is.
Think about that.
You
Our
guys
share of the unfunded liability is more than $6.5 million.
Yeah, you guys won't get a bill for that 6.5 million, but what they will do is increase the payroll contributions that you all have to make. That's funded as a percentage of payroll, so that'll definitely tick up over time as the state tries to ratchet that number down.
You know, Travis, is it your opinion that you know that's a huge projection?
It is.
It's based on, you know, it's got factored in earnings projections. It's got factored in the cost of, you know, the wages. It's got so many variables in it. I mean, I think it's a responsible thing, and I think it's good that it's being recorded. And it could also flip around potentially too, but anyway, it does bear some public education as to what that is. And
yeah, it's an estimate.
Yeah.
It's done based on actuarial information that the state collects. They hire an actuary to look at the whole plan, so you can look at the assumptions the actuary makes, which is, of course, the rise of future healthcare costs, investment earnings on the money they have set aside.
And I'd make a note to anybody who's interested in the public. That's all, and the final is not on our website yet, but as soon as Gould Killian is finished, it will be on our website. And you can see all the details as to how they come of that calculation. It may not be that much of interest to anybody, but it's disclosed. It is public information, and it's a complicated forecast. But the number's staggering. Whatever that number is statewide, you know, I have no idea what it is, but it has to be incredible. And that is an unfunded liability at the state level for retirement health benefits.
We made no material audit adjustments during the audit, and there were also no adjustments that we recommended that management decided not to post. As always, we try to make recommendations here and there during the audit regarding ways to strengthen controls and implement best practices that we see elsewhere. In our opinion, we made some of those recommendations, but in our opinion, nothing rose to the level of a reportable deficiency in controls. We did discuss with management regarding the segregation of duties between the human resource and payroll process. Currently, those are performed and have been for a number of years by the same person. That's not unusual in a town this size. Under an ideal circumstance, you would have separate people performing human resource versus payroll processes. In a smaller government, it may not be cost beneficial to separate those functions. If you can do it, that'd be great. If not, an alternative, kind of a mitigating control, would be a good idea to have a process where the payroll registers and journals are reviewed and formally approved prior to payroll being processed. Got just a few financial highlights. I'll try not to cross over what Dean said too much. That's a pie chart that just shows the FY18 revenue, as it'll show in your financial statements for the general fund. The top three general fund revenues, ad valorem tax is about little over 3.9 million. That was an increase of 81,000, or just a little over 2% from FY17. Other taxes and licenses, this is primarily local option sales tax. Had a small increase of about 47,000. As Dean mentioned, that's been pretty flat for the last couple of years now. Sales and services is 1.26 million. That was an increase of about 100,000. That includes fire protection revenue that's paid to the town by Buncombe County, as well as Parks and Rec revenue. The majority of that increase, almost all of it, came from the increased fire protection charges. The other category consists of grants, permits, and fees and investment earnings. The largest amounts included in there will be building permit revenue, which is about $268,000, and PAL bill funds of about $232,000. Also, as an aside, your investment earnings doubled from last year, which is $52,000. That's not going to inflate the budget too much, but compared to what we were seeing in the last few years, it's moving in the right direction at least. So expenditures, your top three expenditure categories in the general fund. Public safety was about $3.8 million. That was a decrease of $90,000 over last year, or about 2%. And I believe that's because in FY17 we bought a fire truck. Would be the reason that it went down from 17 to 18. In 2018, general government, which includes admin, governing board, and town buildings, was $2.1 million, which was an increase of $1 million. That increase is due. That's the line item that the building purchase, the old foam and fabric building, was charged there. The general fund piece of it, which was $1 million. So that represents that whole increase. Public works was $1.2 million. That was an increase of about $40,000, and of course that's the streets department. The other category includes sanitation, which is about $750,000. Parks and Rec, which was about $820,000, and debt service, which was about $425,000. There's a graph that shows fund balance available over the last 5 years compared to actual fund balance or total fund balance. Fund balance available is a statutory calculation that the state uses. It measures the amount of fund balance that you have available to appropriate in your next budget. It's calculated roughly by taking cash on hand or in the bank and subtracting out current liabilities such as accounts payable. It's used by the state to measure the financial health of the unit and its ability to meet ongoing obligations. As you can see, fund balance and total fund balance both peaked in 2016. It's been a couple of declines in the last 2 years, and as Dean mentioned before, that's mostly due to paying down debt and making capital purchases that were at least partially self-financed.
It's almost totally down.
Yeah. The next chart shows that fund balance available as a percentage of your expenditures, and it compares the town, which is the red line, to municipalities statewide, and then your population group, which is the blue line at the top. The state sets the minimum fund balance percentage at 8%, which is about 1 month of expenditures. I believe you guys try to manage it at about 30%. As a minimum. You're at 35% this year. Again, the decline over the last 2 years is the same issues we've been talking about, paying down debt and capital purchases. The population group line up at the top is skewed really bad. You're in the population group category at the state between 2,500 and 10,000. You're really close to the top of that group. A lot of small towns, by necessity, have to have a really high fund balance percentage. So it's really a more useful comparison almost to compare you guys to the statewide average as opposed to your population group.
And for the public again, the prior board set our goal for fund balance at 30.5.
30. We changed it from 30.5 to 30.
We're at 30%, exactly 30%.
This graph shows outstanding debt for the town, for the general fund and the water fund from 2014 through 2018. And as you can see, it declined pretty precipitously up through 2018. And then, of course, in 2018, we borrowed money to buy the new public works building. And the last slide I have is a summary of the water fund. The working capital, which is basically current assets minus current liabilities, decreased slightly over the prior year. That was primarily due to the amount of cash that was taken out of the water fund to make the down payment on the foam and fabric building. Operating results are positive. They continue to be positive. You had operating income of about $97,000 and cash flow from operations of about $400,000. And that is all I had. I'll be happy to take any questions.
it's not a question about your presentation, but it is a comment regarding discussions had during the audit process. And I have discussed these with the board a couple of months ago, and these were recommendations that came from discussions with Gould Killian, and so I'm going to pass these along for Dean's consideration to work with our new town manager when he comes in, and come back to the board in particular on two issues. One would be revisions or recommendations in the practices and policies regarding town-issued credit cards. The second is recommendations in practice and policies in the pre-audit and disbursement process for our disbursements. Both of those we had discussed earlier, and I had those comments are in some board minutes from one of our special called meetings 2 or 3 months ago, but they've been made public. And lastly, I discussed with Gould Killian Group and mentioned that discussion to the board that the town review and consider whether the finance officer, which is Dean Luby in our case, the finance officer for the town of Black Mountain, would the possibility or recommendation or discussion that the finance officer become a direct hire of the Board of Aldermen as opposed to being a direct hire of the town manager. Does require a charter amendment, and I'm not making a recommendation one way or the other, but I do think it's a healthy discussion for the board to have, which after the new town manager comes in perhaps December or early next year. But on those first two comments, practices and policies regarding issued credit cards and the pre-audit and disbursement process, if we could make sure and work, Dean, with Travis on both of those and come back to the board in a practical matter after we have time. You have time to work through it with the new town manager.
Anyone else? Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
All righty. New business update on 304 Black Mountain Avenue. That'd be Ron.
May I say one thing about a couple of things he mentioned before we move on? One, with regard to the I-9, the failure to have the paperwork filled out properly so we could register with the U.S. government as required by the law since 1986, I think it was. That was discovered about the first week that our new HR person is on the job, and she immediately started going through the files to try to discover the nature and extent of the problem and started correcting the problem. You had two sets of people. You had permanent employees and temporary employees. So it was a large number of people, and it involved anybody still working here. And so she has pretty much got that all squared away, I think, almost all of them. And of course, she knew as soon as, and what happened was Gould Killian asked for 3 personnel files, and 2 of them didn't have the proper documentation. So it just happened to be the 2 out of the 3 that they asked for. So she understood the significance and jumped on that quickly. And of course, she already had a checklist that she had from the get-go in terms of new hires or whatever. And it involves not just new hires, but it's also when people leave employment of the town, you have to take them out of the system. So there's work to be done when people come in, work to be done when they've gone out. But I'm satisfied with regard to that. We won't have any further problem with the current HR director that we have. One other thing, talking about the HR person doing HR and also payroll, as I think all of you know, Meredith is retiring at the end of November, and this past week we have posted a job description and we've rewritten it, and basically that person, we're seeking an accounting / payroll specialist, somebody who has payroll experience and can do that in addition to do the basic accounting, payment of bills and stuff in that job. So we're on top of that, and that's something that was obvious to me that needed to be done, and we had the opportunity to do that, and so we're moving forward with that.
Mr. Mayor, do we need to entertain a motion to accept the auditor's report as presented?
I think you usually did that,
Okay, I believe we do. All right.
So I'd make that motion.
Motion.
Motion to accept the auditor's report for the year ending June 30th, 2018 as presented.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, Larry. All right, update on 304 Black Mountain Avenue.
Yeah, just about pretty much completed to move in with one exception. I'll talk about it. One more thing we have to deal with. But Jamie and his folks pretty much got their stuff moved in terms of their administrative office type stuff. Parks and Rec is all settled in. And that has gone pretty smoothly. I think the transition in terms of moving folks and having decent office space to operate out of. With regard to the one thing we have left to deal with is place a sprinkler system in the building. The building way back when was a car dealership, and back then the code did not require sprinklers if you were going to have vehicles with gas and oils and flammables or however they describe those materials in there, but the code has since changed, so we have to do that in order for the back part to house a lot of our maintenance and equipment that we have. And so we've been looking at that, and we've had one estimate come in, and then we're hopefully getting a second one this week, and we'll know, and we got a pretty good idea, I think, what it's going to cost us. And again, since we have another estimate to come in, I don't want to really mention how much at this point, but it's a multi-part job. Basically, you have a sprinkler system for the back part, which is the big open warehouse area. And then up in the front part where you have the offices, they have a drop ceiling, something akin to that. So it's a lot more, I guess, labor intensive putting it in. And you also have to point sprinkler heads up because we have some storage area that has a wooden floor. So it's a little more complicated, but at any rate, it's something that can be done by these companies that we're looking at. Additionally, we have to get water into the building and install what's called a backflow valve and device to keep the outside connection for the fire department if they were to have to come. Now we can put the pipe in-house, and that's going to save us a lot of money, but we'll still have to buy the valve and the box that keeps it warm. But at any rate, we should be back within a week or two trying to talk to you further about that. One company has told us they can install this in November, and the other indicates they could do it in December. And the sooner that gets done, then the sooner that all of our equipment can move from Highway 70 into the building. It will also allow us to do a lot of maintenance and stuff inside the building. And I've talked to our new town manager several times about this. He spent a day with me week before last, and this was one of the things we talked a lot about. And so he's well aware of this, so we're going to try and keep moving forward on that. And that's pretty much the gist of that at this point, I think. Our fence is up. I don't know if anybody's seen it. The fence is completely up. We got that in before we moved in, so we have security over there. We also have security cameras there that are up and working that have feeds to the police department. So we're very happy about that. But it's a great building. It's a very solid building, and I think will meet the town's needs for many years.
Okay. Questions? All right, acceptance of real property donation. Jessica was going to make that presentation.
She passed me that.
Okay.
She was very sick. I saw her this morning. I had to go to the funeral lunchtime before I left. I saw her. She was really bad off.
Okay, good. All right.
I want to address C and D together. I passed a map down. It's actually just the tax map that I marked up. The Friends have a piece of property on the north side of the railroad track where we want our greenway to run. It runs along the river. River slices their property in two. When you're looking at that map, if you turn Buncombe County to the top, you're looking north. Along the north edge of their property, you'll see a curve in the river. Not as much as a horseshoe, but everybody knows water, you know where the wear and tear is. It's on the inside of that curve, the outside of that curve. And there's been some problems with that. But that played their advantage because the Friends don't have the ability to deal with it, and Jessica believes we have some funding available that can take care of the riverbank restoration. So the Friends are willing to give us an easement along that part of the river. And what that does, if we can put the greenway through there rather than the original planned path, it eliminates 2 bridges. And so they've offered that easement. On that same map, you'll see that their property is bisected by the river on the south side, leaving just a weird looking shaped property that runs to the railroad. That's approximately 0.92 acres. And they've offered just to give that to the town. It's ours. The advantage, the nice part about that is you've got a piece of property just across the river. If you take one of those 2 bridges you just saved and you bridge the river there, then you've got a park area along the greenway of close to 1 acre. And they've offered to donate that to the town because something they have no use for, can't deal with across the river. So the first resolution you've asked to approve is to approve the donation of the easement, and the second, no, I got that backwards. The first resolution, R-18-20, is your resolution to accept the donation of the property, and the second is the resolution to accept the donation of the easement for the greenway.
We'll do them both separately. Do I have a motion to approve R-18-20?
So moved.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. All right, the next is, do I have a motion to approve resolution R-18-21?
So moved.
All righty, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0.
And Mayor, I think, I'd like to thank the Swananoa Valley Friends meeting for their cooperation and,
Amen to that.
kind work toward us, toward the town of Black Mountain.
All righty, appointment to town boards and commissions. The Historic Preservation Commission has one vacancy, 3 years, and do I have a motion to appoint someone for the Historic Preservation Commission?
Yes, I would like to nominate Frank Capelli.
All righty, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty, we also have a vacancy on the Urban Forestry. Reba Brockhurst is the only applicant that we have. Do we have a motion to nominate?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, public hearing for text amendments to replace the privilege license section with business registrations. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for text amendments?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approves 5-0. All right, Ron, if you can.
Let me take that. I'll take that. Dealt with Jessica on this. A couple, 3 years ago, you guys, the legislature took away your ability to collect privilege license taxes and substituted business registration, which you've been doing for the last couple of years. Jessica just noted that we had not followed up with an ordinance amendment, and all this is, although it's probably the longest reading thing you've got in your packet, it's just changing your ordinance from having a privilege license provision to having business registrations. The difference between the two is privilege licenses were charged to everybody who did business in town. Now, business registration, you collect a small fee from it, and it's limited, but that's only businesses that have their home office in your town. But that's in accordance with statute. We really didn't give not giving a lot of leeway on what we can do with that.
All righty, we don't have any public comment. No one signed up. Any discussion from the board members? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved 5-0. Do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 018-04 as presented?
So moved.
All in favor? We have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. Approval. All right, public hearing for text amendment to definitions to add vacant lot and undeveloped lot. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing for the text amendment?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Ron Moore, you want to give us a rundown? Oh, Ron Sneed?
Tax for that one too.
Okay.
That works. An issue that's arisen is we have ordinances that provide that any lots have to be kept basically mowed and cleaned up. And if you're like me and several others, you've got land that I've got 9 acres. I don't want the zoning administrator to show up and tell me I've got to mow and trim out 9 acres. And so the planning board and the staff looked at, can we identify what's a vacant lot and what's undeveloped land? And land vacant is one that's partially prepared for development and just sitting there, and then undeveloped land is just land in its natural state. And that they sent this to you asking that for this amendment. So we distinguish that so that the owners of raw acreage don't have to underbrush and mow, same as I would if I started a subdivision and left a lot that's ready to build on and then just let it go wild.
Okay. Alrighty. There's no one signed up for public comment. Any discussion by the board members? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution?
If I may interrupt at this point, we have a legislative change on your statement of consistency. The legislature wants you to adopt your statement of consistency first before adopting the ordinance. And the next page in your book is the statement of consistency, worded a lot more verbiage there than you're accustomed to, but you have to find 2 things. One, you're getting ready to approve an ordinance. First, that it is consistent with your plan, and second, that it's in public interest. And the consistency statement as provided you and recommended to the planning board has that language. But now you have to adopt your statement of consistency first and ordinance second. Just reverse from what you've been doing.
All righty, do I have a motion to approve the statement of consistency?
So moved.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion to approve?
I made it.
No.
That way if I can vote it. Okay.
Move to approve the statement of consistency. All right, all in favor?
Yeah.
He already did it. No.
No?
Yeah. I think.
Didn't I do that?
We did adopt the
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah.
We didn't, no, this is just for the statement.
Right. And I made a motion to adopt the
Yeah.
statement.
Okay.
So moved to adopt the statement.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, Ron,
Yep.
yep.
All right.
Do I have a motion to adopt the ordinance as presented?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Communication from staff. Ron Sneed.
I think I've talked enough and I've run out of things.
Mr. Ron Moore.
Well, the big new news is that this will be my last sitting in this chair for a monthly meeting, I believe. Mr. Josh Harrell is to start on this Thursday, October the 11th, and we're all looking forward to that. And like I said, we have been in contact, and he spent some time with me, and we've talked, and I think he'll do a great job for you. There's going to be a welcome reception at 304 Black Mountain Avenue 2 weeks from tomorrow, Tuesday, October the 23rd, from 12 to 2. October 23rd from 12 to 2 at 304 Black Mountain Avenue. And that will be a drop-in where the public's invited to come and welcome our new town manager. It's been my honor and pleasure to serve you for the last 4 months. My goal when I got here was to leave it better than I found it, and we've tried to make some changes and move us in a positive direction. And one of the things I'd indicated, I hope to solve some problems so that your new town manager would not have to deal with. And of course, time will tell how we did with that, but thank you for the opportunity to serve you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty. Communication from the Board of Alderman.
Mr. Mayor, just very quickly, first, my personal thanks, Ron. It's been a pleasure working with you. Saturday, I don't know if you noticed, but down at the primary school, the PTO, together with Forest Financial, YMCA Western North Carolina, they put up a new playground down there on Saturday. They had 250 or more than 200 volunteers that showed up on Saturday morning, and they put that up. It looks good, and they had a good time. It was a great event. I was able to be there in the afternoon. Secondly, I wanted to mention I was up the golf course on Saturday afternoon, walking a few holes, and Jerry Atkins, our greens superintendent, was Brigman. I'm sorry, was hard at work because there was a pipe that had broken up on number 7 green, and he and one of his cohorts, one of his staff folks, were working hard and working overtime to get that repaired because they needed the water working because they were going to do some treatment today and needed the water. They were going to treat the greens, I think, and needed to have the water in place for that. So just a shout out to Jerry, working hard, and so was his colleague, and down there on Saturday afternoon, going relatively unnoticed, I think, but we appreciate that. And so that's all I have.
While you're talking about the golf course, I don't know if you noticed, if you were out and around the lake and the golf course the last month, the geese came back. Well, the reason they came back is Calvin, the goose dog, was on vacation. And he was going across country with his caretaking family. He tried to master some seagulls when he was in Seattle, and on their way back across country in Kansas City, they stopped at a place and there was a nice lake, and next thing they know, he's in the lake after their geese. So he had not forgotten, so he is back. He just got back this weekend, and we're all happy to see him back, and he's back at work. He's got a smile on his face. He's happy to be back.
Anything else from the board?
Then I have something.
Thing or two.
Mr. Jones, step up, please, sir. We have a resolution from the town of Black Mountain. Whereas Steve Jones has served the town of Black Mountain in a conscientious, dedicated, and exemplary manner for a volunteer fireman for 12 years, full-time firefighter for 26 years, and as the fire chief for the past 11 years. Whereas GS 16A-294.1 provides that retiring members of municipalities or fighting agencies may receive at the time of their retirement firefighting helmet worn by them and their service with the municipality, and whereas the Board of Alderman in their discretion desire to award Chief Jones his service badge worn by him during his service. And whereas he has served as a member of the town of Black Mountain Fire Department for a total of 38 years, he's now retiring on November the 28th as fire chief. And he should be recognized for his tireless commitment to his county and community. We recognize his 38 years of service and thank you for a job well done. Now, it be resolved that the Board of Alderman of the town of Black Mountain as follows. We want to transfer your firefighting helmet and badge during your service with the town of Black Mountain, and we've adopted this on the 8th of October 2018. Matthews, if you'll come up, please, sir. Jamie, we've got a certificate of commendation for you. You distinguished yourself and dedicated selfless service, ensuring that the Black Mountain Recreation Park Public Works Department was sustained at the highest strength possible while serving as an interim recreation director. You provided timely, highly qualified service, enthusiastically led the department, becoming a valuable asset to our mission. Jamie's performance is in keeping with the highest standards and reflect district credit upon himself and the Black Mountain Recreation Public Works Department and the town of Black Mountain. And board, I'd like to thank you for it, Jamie. All right, I'm about done. We now have a proclamation for Mr. Ron Moore. Whereas Black Mountain is always appreciative of those who choose to serve for the betterment of the community, and that whereas Ron Moore served the town of Black Mountain as interim manager for June 2018 until October 2018, and whereas during his tenure he discharged the responsibilities of his office dutifully, thoughtfully, and faithfully with dignity and courage. Whereas he rendered during his service valuable service to the town of Black Mountain and the citizens thereof, and where it is fitting that town of Black Mountain shows appreciation when one has rendered such valuable services. Now, therefore, I, Don Collins, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, and the Board of Aldermen here do proclaim Ron Moore is hereby acknowledged as been having a good, loyal, faithful public servant of Black Mountain. This proclamation expresses the deep appreciation on behalf of the citizens of Black Mountain and the valuable service which he's provided the town. With this proclamation is presented to Ron Moore, and a copy of the same shall be placed within the records of the town of Black Mountain. Thank you, brother. This is your certificate, and the board has got you just a little special little gift. And as it says, there we go. Better face the bear than run from it. Thank you, the town of Black Mountain. And Ron, you have faced many bears in your lifetime, and several here in this town. And we appreciate it, brother. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's cool. You had a good time lugging that around over where you're going to put it.
I love this.
I'm gonna leave it here for now, unless you want me to put it somewhere else.
Go carry it by truck.
That's all right.
We'll get it.
All right.
Thank all of you.
Set it down before you get hurt.
We thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else from anyone? Hearing none, motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Mr. Mayor, should you invite the public up for a piece of cake?
It's sliced and here's an apple.
All right. Everybody invited.